Here's what nobody tells you about caring what other people think. You're not actually worried about what they think. You're terrified of what you imagine they think. And that's the entire problem right there. You walk into a room and immediately start playing mind reader. You mess up a presentation and spend 3 days replaying everyone's facial expressions. You post something online and obsessively check for reactions, convinced everyone's judging you. Meanwhile, those people? They've already forgotten about you. They're too busy worrying about what you think of them. Today, I'm giving you the exact mental shift that stops this cycle. Not in 6 months of therapy, not after years of personal growth, in about 10 minutes. And I'm throwing in practical exercises you can use the second this video ends. Let's fix this. Section 1. The real problem. First, we need to understand what's actually happening in your brain when you care too much about others' opinions. You think you have a confidence problem. You don't. You have an imagination problem. Your brain evolved to keep you safe in small tribal groups where social rejection literally meant death. Getting kicked out of the tribe 50,000 years ago? That's a death sentence. So your ancestors who were paranoid about what others thought, they survived. They passed those genes down to you. The problem is your brain hasn't updated its software. It still thinks Karen from accounting not laughing at your joke is the same threat level as being exiled from the tribe. It's running prehistoric programming in a modern world where social rejection is mostly inconvenient, not fatal. But here's where it gets worse. Your brain doesn't just worry about real rejection. It invents rejection that doesn't exist. Psychologists call this the spotlight effect. You think everyone's watching you, analyzing you, judging you. Research from Cornell University shows we overestimate how much people notice us by about 40%. When you walk into a room thinking everyone's staring at your outfit, your hair, your awkwardness, maybe one person glanced up, maybe. And that person who glanced up, they're not thinking, wow, look at that awkward person. They're thinking, I hope nobody notices the stain on my shirt, or did I respond to that email? Or literally nothing, because humans operate on autopilot 47% of the time, according to Harvard research. You're not the main character in everyone else's story. You're barely a background extra. And I don't mean that as an insult, I mean that as your liberation. The second massive problem. You're trying to manage something that's completely out of your control. You cannot control what people think. You can't. Even if you could read minds, you couldn't control their thoughts. So you're exhausting yourself, trying to manipulate an outcome that's fundamentally impossible to manipulate. You're playing a game you cannot win, and you're losing sleep over it. Section 2. The shift. So here's the mindset shift that changes everything. Stop trying to control what people think. Start deciding what you want them to remember. Notice the difference? One is impossible and anxiety-producing. The other is entirely within your control and actually empowering. You can't control whether someone judges you, but you can control whether you show up authentically, speak your truth, and do things aligned with your values. And here's the paradox. When you stop performing for approval, people respect you more. Think about the people you actually admire. Are they people pleasers who shapeshift depending on who's in the room? No. They're people who have a clear sense of self and aren't apologizing for it. They're not rude, they're just done pretending. That's the person you're about to become. Now let me give you the instant reframe technique that rewires this pattern. The audience illusion exercise. Next time you feel that spike of social anxiety before a meeting, a date, a presentation, whatever, do this. Close your eyes. Picture everyone who might judge you sitting in an audience. Really see them. Now, imagine walking up to each person and asking them, what were you thinking about 3 days ago at 2 p.m.? They can't answer. They don't remember. They were thinking about themselves. Now ask them, what do you remember about the last 5 people you interacted with? They remember almost nothing. Maybe a vague impression, maybe not even that. This is the truth. People are the main character in their own story, and you're basically a walk-on extra. They're not spending mental energy analyzing you. They're thinking about themselves, their problems, their insecurities, their to-do lists. You're worried about being judged by people who aren't even watching the show. Do this visualization before anxiety-inducing situations. It takes 60 seconds and it obliterates the imaginary audience you've been performing for. Section 3. The cognitive reframes. Now let's install some new mental software with these cognitive reframes. These are thought patterns that, when practiced, automatically reduce your anxiety response. Reframe number 1. Judgment is data, not truth. When someone judges you, that's information about them, not you. Their judgment reveals their values, their insecurities, their worldview. It's not an objective assessment of your worth. If someone thinks you're too loud, that tells you they value quiet. If someone thinks you're too ambitious, that tells them they're threatened by ambition. If someone thinks you're weird, that tells them they have a narrow definition of normal. None of these judgments are facts. They are opinions shaped by that person's history and psychology. Start seeing judgment as background noise. Some people will judge you for succeeding. Others will judge you for failing. Some will judge you for being too much. Others for not being enough. You literally cannot win everyone's approval. So stop trying. Let them have their opinions. Their opinions are about them. Reframe number 2. Discomfort is not danger. Your anxiety spikes because your brain thinks social rejection equals death. It doesn't. You can survive people disliking you. You've already survived it multiple times in your life. The feeling of anxiety is just your body's alarm system being overly sensitive. It's a smoke detector going off because you burned toast, not because your house is on fire. When you feel that anxiety rising, don't fight it. Just label it. This is my brain's false alarm system. I'm feeling discomfort, not experiencing danger. This simple labeling technique, proven effective in neuroscience research, creates distance between you and the feeling. Reframe number 3. My value doesn't decrease based on someone's inability to see it. Read that again. Your worth is not determined by whether people recognize it. You are not a product seeking market validation. You're a human being with inherent value. Someone not appreciating you doesn't diminish you. It just means they're not your people. And that's fine. Not everyone needs to be your people. You only need a handful of people who actually get you. Quality over quantity. Reframe number 4. Authenticity attracts, performance exhausts. Every minute you spend trying to be what you think others want, you're betraying yourself and you're exhausting yourself. And ironically, you're making yourself less likable because people can sense inauthenticity. Authenticity is magnetic. When you show up as yourself, flaws included, you give others permission to do the same. You build real connections instead of shallow performances. The people who reject the real you, they were never going to be in your corner anyway. You're just finding out faster, which saves you time. Section 4. Practical exercises. All right, theory is done. Let's get tactical. Here are 3 exercises you can implement immediately. Exercise number 1. The embarrassment exposure. This sounds counterintuitive, but it works. Deliberately do something mildly embarrassing this week. Wear mismatched socks to work. Ask a stupid question in a meeting. trip slightly on purpose in public. Why? Because you need to prove to your brain that social embarrassment is not fatal. You need evidence that you can survive minor judgment and the world doesn't end. Do something small, observe that nothing terrible happens, and your brain recalibrates its threat assessment. This is exposure therapy in action, and it's the foundation of treating social anxiety in clinical psychology. Exercise number 2, the opinion inventory. Take out your phone right now. Write down 5 opinions you have that you normally hide because you're afraid of judgment. Political views, lifestyle choices, controversial preferences, whatever you usually keep quiet about. Now pick one, just one. Share it this week with someone you trust, not on social media where you're broadcasting to hundreds. One person, one conversation. Practice having your own opinions and expressing them. Start small. Build the muscle. You'll realize most people either agree, respectfully disagree, or don't care as much as you feared. Exercise number 3, the reverse golden rule. The golden rule says treat others how you want to be treated. The reverse golden rule says treat yourself how you treat others. Think about how much mental energy you spend judging other people. Probably not much, right? When someone makes a mistake, you likely forget it within hours. You're generally more forgiving of others than they probably deserve. Now, give yourself that same grace. When you make a social misstep, respond to yourself like you'd respond to a friend. Would you tell your friend they're an idiot who ruined everything? No. You'd say, that's awkward, but nobody'll remember it tomorrow. Talk to yourself like you talk to people you care about. Section 5. The deeper work. Now let's address the root cause, because sometimes caring too much what others think is a symptom of a deeper issue. You don't know who you are. If your identity is built on other people's approval, you have no stable foundation. You're constantly shape-shifting based on your environment. That's exhausting and unsustainable. You need to build an internal value system that's independent of external validation. Ask yourself these questions. What do I believe is important in life? What do I stand for, even if nobody's watching? What kind of person do I want to be, regardless of whether anyone notices? What are my non-negotiables? Write down actual answers, not what sounds good, not what you think you should say, what's actually true for you. This is your internal compass. When you know who you are and what you value, other people's opinions become less destabilizing. They're just noise compared to your internal signal. Here's another hard truth. Sometimes we care what others think because we secretly agree with their criticism. If someone calls you lazy and you're terrified they're right, that's not about them, that's about your relationship with yourself. Do the internal work. Get honest about where you're not living up to your own standards, not society's standards, yours. Then either change the behavior or change the standard. But stop living in that ambiguous middle zone where you're judging yourself and projecting that judgment onto everyone else. And finally, curate your environment. You're not going to stop caring what others think if you're constantly surrounded by judgmental, toxic people. Put yourself around people who celebrate you, challenge you to grow, and don't make you feel like you need to audition for their approval. You become like the 5 people you spend the most time with. Choose wisely. Let's bring this home. You've spent years giving away your power to an imaginary audience that's barely paying attention. You've been playing a game where the rules are unclear, the goalposts keep moving, and winning is impossible. Here's permission to stop playing. You don't need everyone to like you. You don't need universal approval. You need integrity with yourself. You need a small circle of people who actually see you. You need to wake up and know you're living according to your values, not someone else's expectations. The irony is that the moment you stop performing for approval, you become more likable. Confidence isn't about being perfect. It's about being comfortable with imperfection. It's about showing up as yourself and letting the chips fall where they may. Some people will love you. Some will hate you. Most will feel absolutely nothing because they're too busy worrying about their own lives. And all of that is fine. Your job is not to be universally liked. Your job is to be authentically you and let that authenticity filter for the people who are supposed to be in your life. The challenge. Here's your immediate action step, and I'm serious about this. Don't just watch this video and move on. Actually do this. Before the end of today, do one thing you've been avoiding because you were worried about judgment. Post that thing on social media. Have that difficult conversation. Wear that outfit. Share that opinion. Ask that question. One thing. That's it. And when you do it, please take a look at what happens. Notice that your brain was catastrophizing. Notice that most people don't care nearly as much as you feared. Notice that you survived. Then come back and comment, "I did it, so I know you actually took action." Not for my validation, for your own accountability. The life you want is on the other side of caring less about what strangers think and more about what you know is true. Go get it.